Hello there, guys, and welcome back to my channel for a live reaction, instant reaction. See, I can't even do intros anymore. That's how this game is making me feel, because how on earth can you play so badly and then all of a sudden still win? What has this happened? I've literally just read that this was Chelsea's first clean sheet in 17 away games. How has this game led to our first clean sheet in 17 away games? That is unbelievable. What a ridiculous game. I mean, we were absolutely diabolical, really, from the first minute to nearly the last. And Jadon Sancho off the bench and Nkunku very late on essentially saved us all. Plus, and people know I've been very critical, Rob Sanchez, shout at you, because what a penalty save that was. Obviously, we will get into speaking about all the details, the ins and outs. Jadon Sancho's, frankly, mesmerising performance on the wing. I'm like, excuse me, what is this and what has happened? Like, you know what I mean? It felt like we signed Jadon Sancho, who everybody wanted when he was at Dortmund. That's what it felt like today anyway. So in the end, happy, but a lot of poor performances from the manager, from the team. So many players missing. We'll need to talk about that as well. But I will start with you, Bertram. First and foremost, welcome back. The last time you were on was after we beat Wolves 6-2. So I think we can come to an agreement that Bertram needs to come on every single one of these post-match streams, because that seems to be the only way we win a game. So Bertram, please come back every week. But also, how do you feel? A win? Fantastic. Obviously, we all rather win than not win. But the performance weren't great, was it?
No, I think I'll just start off by showing this. I think we've all seen. I think this is exactly how we feel right now. I think, well, a couple of points just to start off with. Good to see everyone again. I hope everyone's well. Just very good to get a win, to be honest. I think a lot will be said, both from us and from, outside sources as well, about the performance. But as long as we get 3 points on the board, you can't really complain too much. I think did we play well? No. Were we lucky? Yes. But at the end of the day, I think if you look at last season, we played Bournemouth around the same time. We got a 0-0 draw. It took us quite a while to get our second win under Poch last season. So I suppose 4 games in, 7 points, we'll take that. But I guess we all knew this would take time. The performances and the points wouldn't come straight away. Some games might be longer than others, like this one, for example. But as long as we win, and I think you can see today, we have match winners now, or we at least have in this game, which is the difference to maybe some of the games we had last season. So I think just overall, very positive for us to get the win. A lot will be made of the performance, but in the end, 3 points is all that really matters.
Exactly. 3 points is all that really matters. Shout out everybody in the chat, by the way. Get involved in the chat. Let us know your thoughts. Subscribe if you haven't done that yet. Hit that like button. Always helps spread these streams out to more people. JC, shout out you watching at 2:45 a.m. Just fall asleep. It's fine. Hey, at least you can fall asleep happy and not depressed. So, Adash, I'll come to you first of all. Thank you for joining us as well. Appreciate it very, very much. Similar question as opposed to Bertram. How do you feel after a game like this? Obviously amazing that we won, but does the kind of potential slight concern over the poor performance outweigh it? It's a weird one, because on the one hand, you can think this is exactly the kind of game that we didn't win so many times over the last few years. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, I can look at it that way. But there's also the perspective of like, why do we have to play that bad in the first place? Do you know what I mean? Just play better. Do you know what I mean? Makes things a lot easier. We'll obviously look at stats and stuff, but like, we essentially got better today. And I do not understand how today of all days we kept the clean sheet. How today of all days we managed to somehow scrape. I mean, to be honest, I kind of felt it coming towards the end, because it felt like Bournemouth was so surprisingly so much better than us that it was like, and they had so many chances. It was almost like reverse what happens to us usually, where we can't score and eventually the opponent get one. And that's what I think happened to Bournemouth today. They had so many chances, didn't take them. Eventually, we were just going to get one, because that's kind of how football goes. But Adash, how do you feel about it now in hindsight? Is it the elation over winning? Does that outweigh the potential concerns over a bad performance?
Yeah, I think, first of all, thank you for having me. Hope everybody in the chat, and hope you all are doing well. For me, it's like a tough one. Like you said, it's kind of a double-edged sword. We won the game, and this is a game that I did not expect to win. Bournemouth, typically a bogey team. I guess in some senses we can thank Tottenham for taking away Dom Solanke, because if he was there, I guarantee you he would have scored in a game like today. But I mean, yeah, it was a bit of a tough watch. I'm not gonna lie. But a lot of the issues that we had today, I think we can improve on. It's not like it was just like a horrendous performance all around. But then on the other side, the goal that we did score, it wasn't even like a great team goal. It was just great play from Sancho on the wing, and then like a moment of magic almost from Nkunku to like dribble past three defenders and outmuscle them and get the shot off. So from that perspective, we got very, very lucky. Bournemouth also had a lot of chances. But honestly, I'm just going to try to take the positives in the sense that we won the game and we need every 3 points going forward, wherever we end up finishing. I mean, last season was so competitive, so every single point matters. And if I have to pick between playing badly and getting points versus playing well and not getting points, I'm picking this one every day of the week.
Yeah, and fair dues. I don't think there's much wrong with that, for being honest. Ladies and gentlemen, I did put a poll in the chat for you to pick your man of the match. I did kind of have to come up with it on the spot, which 4 options I would give you. So I went with Rob Sanchez, Jadon Sancho, Christopher Nkunku, and Levi Colwill. Maybe there was a shout for somebody else that I didn't really think of. I thought Fofana was really good until he cost us the penalty. So, that is obviously a bit more of a difficult one to judge. But yeah, I guess let's get into the game. Let me quickly get this picture off, and let's scroll back down to the lineup at the beginning of the game. Why does it take this long to scroll to a lineup? Bloody hell, how much do you want to post? So, quite an interesting one today. Disasi starting at right back because Reece James is injured, because Malagusta is injured. Then all of a sudden, we basically didn't have a midfield because we're starting with Renato Vega and Caicedo there, and we see no Enzo Fernandez in the squad, no Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall in the squad, no Carney Chukwuemeka in the squad, which you're like, okay, well, he wasn't in the squad the last 2 games either. Well, I'm like, fair. But then Enzo and Dewsbury-Hall were. And now still Carney wasn't called up. And we basically had no midfield. The only midfield on the bench was just Caicedo. And then obviously kind of an unchanged front four, if you will. But obviously everything changed quite dramatically because, well, I'll bring it up on screen. But essentially, not Enzo Fernandez or any of the midfielders was playing the left number 10. It was Marco Corella, who started from left back and essentially played as our left number 10 for most of the game. So that was a bit interesting. But Bertram, I'll start with you. What did you make of the lineup? Obviously, we had to pick some sort of right back, but first of all, in hindsight, certainly didn't work out. I always felt if you have to play a centre-back there, it has to be Fofana. If you then play Disasi centre-back instead of Fofana, fine. If you play Tosin there, fine. If you play Badiashile, also fine. But the only centre-back that we have that is somewhat capable of playing right back, that isn't Trevor Chalobah and on loan at Crystal Palace, is Wesley Fofana. So why on earth did you start there with Disasi? It makes zero sense. Otherwise, I was just mainly confused by obviously the midfielders missing. Now, we were told Enzo Fernandez and Dewsbury-Hall are both ill, and that's why they missed the game. But yeah, it didn't take very long into this season for us to feel that we're somehow, after all these signings, slightly understaffed in midfield, which is a bit concerning. So, Bertrand, what did you make of the team and what do you make of the absentees and how we kind of made up for them, I suppose?
Well, yeah, I think, as you said, it's pretty much box standard what we would have expected. I think during the week, we've all seen different predicted lineups from different content creators on both YouTube and Twitter, and most of us said the same things about Disasi, that pretty much all of us predicted the fact that he would start at right back, but we all knew, or we all hoped to see someone else like a Josh Achampong, for example, or, as you said, putting Fofana out there. So I think it's kind of weird because in my head, I knew it wouldn't work. And a lot of people have said it would not work, or, and yet Maresca still did it and it still didn't work. I think as well, you can't be that hard on Disasi as well because the man just isn't the right back. He's not built as it. Did he play well? No, we'll get into that later. But the man just wasn't a right back, or he isn't a right back. So, expecting him to do right back things in the end won't go well. I would have hoped to see Maresca. In the end we won, but that's probably by some miracle. To be honest, I'm a little bit disappointed. Maybe it's, maybe he could have seen this coming. I think, he knew that Reece James wouldn't be available for, the first 3 games, now even more with the European fixtures as well and his injury. So I would have loved to have seen you during preseason getting Achampong up to speed. He could have played in a game like this. You cannot tell me that he would have been any worse. So I think that was a bit disappointing. I think other than that, kind of confusing that a player like Chukwuemeka as well wasn't involved with the likes of Caicedo on the bench. As you said, the midfield options stayed very, very weak. Other than that, I think, looked as we would have expected it to be. So I think the main criticism would probably have to be Disasi.
Yeah, no, it would have to be. Otherwise, I don't think there's much to talk about. I mean, you can talk about the players that we have on the bench: Mudryk, Sancho, Felix, and Nkunku. Like, that is a crazy amount of attacking talent. Imagine there was still only 3 subs in football. Thank God we have at least 5 nowadays, because bloody hell. How do you even get all these men on the pitch? And even if you have them all on the bench, which is good and helped us win the game today and everything, it's still a bit of a problem, because you have too many good players, but you can't stylistically fit them all in the team. So someone is going to be unhappy. You saw Nkunku's celebration after the game. He certainly wasn't happy about not playing, and he was certainly trying to tell us that he is him. But Adash, what did you make of the team? Is the main one that you, like, in hindsight can criticize? Is that Disasi playing at right back? Like I say, even if you start Disasi, just start him, fine, but don't start him at right back. Like we've seen that on the Poch last season. We've seen it on a few occasions at Monaco, even though I know there was this one game at Monaco where he managed to basically pocket Mbappe. I know that game happened once, but it was one game. And we've seen him play at right back for Chelsea numerous times since, and he was awful every single time. So
he was great against Middlesbrough.
Tells us he watched every game from us last season, and then he comes up with this. I don't get it. Adash, what did you make of the team?
Yeah, for me, I mean, people who know me know I love Cobham. I mean, I thought Josh Echempong should have gotten much more opportunities in preseason, and he definitely would have been much better than Disasi today. But like Bertram mentioned, that's not Disasi's fault. He's just not suited to playing that position. But hopefully this game was kind of a wake-up call to Maresca. If all the other performances that he had in the past wasn't enough of an indication that he should not be playing here. But yeah, apart from that, I mean, surprised that Enzo was not playing because he was ill, but nothing I would have changed in that regard. And yeah, you guys kind of touched on the lineup. I didn't have too strong feelings any one way or another.
Fair dues. I'm just trying to get up the average positions of today's performance because, like I say, it was a bit odd, in particular, Cucurella's position. So I will try to get that up for you in a couple of minutes' time. But for now, let's get into our base lineup, I guess, to kind of get us going slowly into our player ratings, I guess. Like I touched on, we kind of moved it around weird. Obviously, I guess by now we should be used to fullbacks inverting, fullbacks pushing into midfield, then creating a back three that we build from. Fofana by far having the most touches, Disasi struggling to defend those wide areas. Do you want to call it that again? Like we had, like, in recent games, a 3-3-4. Sure, you can call it that. I certainly felt there was moments where it looked a bit more like a 3-2-4-1 like this, with Cucurella literally being up there. He clearly wasn't there the whole time, but there were certainly moments where he did that, which is still baffling enough on its own. I'm going to put it up like this because that's, I think, closest to it. But yeah, I will get the average positions up in a minute, and then we will talk about that. But I think what we do need to start with today, because we always start with the goalkeeper, and usually there's not much to say or something to be critical of. But today, and as critical as I have been of Robert Sanchez since joining Chelsea, my God, he was unbelievable today. Now, he had one bad pass. I mean, I'm sure there was maybe two. But yeah, tried to, one in the first half where before, like, he did the whole penalty save and kind of, looked amazing. He already had some good saves, but there was one, like, when he played a long ball from the back, that kind of annoyed because he put it out of play for absolutely no reason. But, I mean, let me look up the stats because surely he must have had, like, hundreds of saves today. Is what it felt like anyway. Let me bring it up. He had 7 saves today and faced an XG against him of 2.28 and conceded none. What a guy. Absolutely heroic performance. There was a number of great saves. The penalty save was unbelievable. I personally we can even argue whether it should have even been a penalty because Robert Sanchez just stood there and the guy ran into him. Like, I don't really... Like, Robert Sanchez would have had to actively get out of the way for the guy to not run into him. That's not how fouls work. Like, I get it. It looks like a foul. I get it. But you could certainly argue it, I think. But yeah, as much as I've been critical of Sanchez, other than like 1 or 2 passes, and for 1 or 2 passes, I'm not going to give you a lower rating. You can't do better as a goalkeeper than Robert Sanchez did today. Genuinely unbelievable. Bertram, you are a goalkeeper yourself. Talk to me. Have I gone a bit crazy by saying 10? But I think you will agree that he was absolutely phenomenal today.
I think he was. I think it'd be tough to disagree with you. I think the things we've criticized him for is being very rash, not being very cool. And I think today we saw a completely different side of it, both, when he was passing out from the back, very assured. His passes, on the most part, were quite good. I think as well, the shot against the bar, I'm pretty sure he would have saved if it was on target. I thought he did very well to come out. Something I thought about during the first half is before he made all of those, diving saves, there were a lot of crosses, a lot of low shots, and he held on to all of them. There's also a cross, right at the end. Very cool, very composed. And I think that's important because that really shows the character of a goalkeeper. A good goalkeeper can make the good saves, but a great goalkeeper makes the easy saves all the time without making mistakes. That being said, him saving, he conceded the penalty, but couldn't really do anything about it.
What do you think about that? Is it still a penalty, even if he can't do anything about it? Where do you stand on that?
I think it is. I think if it was the other way around, we would say it was a stonewall penalty. I do see your point, being that he would have to run around him, but if that was out, in the field, it would be a free kick as well. I think it's just one of those unfortunate situations.
But if you're a goalkeeper and like that happens to you, and you're like, well, I'm here. What can I do? Like, unless I literally move out the way. Like I agree with you. If this happened again,
I think it's just. Yeah, I think it's if you look at it from the attacking player's perspective, that he falls because of me. I think that's because you're right. You wouldn't be able to do anything. But I think a 10 would be fair. He was very, very crucial, and he made some very good saves as well. They might have looked easy, some of the low ones, but I can tell you they are quite difficult. So he won the game for us today, and more than that, he looked very composed and very calm. And maybe maybe he's taking the court. I don't know what they did to him in national team training in Spain, which he probably shouldn't have been at. But it seems to work. So a 10 for me as well.
Seems to have worked. Yeah, absolutely. And obviously there was many great saves to mention today. The penalty save itself. But honestly, my favorite moment from him today was probably that corner cross claim in the very last minute of the game when he just plucked that down. I was like, thank God you didn't just drop that and you went for it and you were confident and you did that. I love that. I absolutely love that. Adash, I think, like myself, you have been very critical of Robert Sanchez in the past. To be fair, so is Bertram. He's saying, in his opinion, Jurgensen is much better than Sanchez, or maybe from a pure base talent or whatever. But today he was just brilliant, wasn't he, Adash? Like, what you can't ask more from a goalkeeper. But maybe also share your thoughts on what you think of the penalty situation. Maybe also the chat. Get involved. What do you make of that kind of penalty? Again, I agree with Bertram that you probably kind of have to give it. But like I say, I'm a bit like, if a player can't do anything about it, should they then be penalized for it? Like, I don't know. But yeah, let me know what you think about that, Adash. And obviously, like I say, in the chat, please. Tell me what you reckon about that as well. Go on then, Adash. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, couldn't have asked for more from him. The penalty, I think, to kind of get into that incident, I think it is a penalty. I think just like the nature of it is that you're right that he can't do much more, but it's also like the attacker can't do much more. And it is like kind of like obstruction. So from that angle, I would just say like it is a foul. It is what it is. It looks a little bit less like a penalty because he was standing still. But like, for example, if he was fully stretched trying to make a save and then the attacker tripped on him, then it would kind of be an equivalent scenario, even though like it looks like he would be tripping the attacker when it looks more like a penalty. But he responded. I thought the penalty was a pretty good one. It was struck pretty well. I think like he was shaping his body to shoot that way, which is why Sanchez was able to dive the right way. But it was still a well-struck penalty, so fair dues to him for saving it. And apart from that, like you said, didn't really make too many mistakes. Can't have asked for much more from him. So I'll stick with the 10 as well.
Absolutely. Fantastic. I mean, if I look at his passing, he actually only had 74% success rate, 34 out of 46. But most of those, a whole 11 of those, misplaced passes, which is, well, he misplaced 12 in total, and 11 of those were long balls that didn't work out. So of normal passes, he didn't necessarily screw up, and he didn't have his usual bozo moment, even though you can obviously argue for the penalty, but that is clearly 99.9% of Fofana, and literally nothing of that is on Robert Sanchez. The other 0.1% is on Anthony Taylor, because he gave a free kick to Bournemouth and a yellow card to Cucurella in the build-up, which was absolutely never a foul, never a yellow card, and shouldn't have never been their ball. So the whole situation started from that. So back to Anthony Taylor trying to rob us. But yeah, moving on the pitch. Before I actually do that, let me bring up the average positions during the game today. I hope you can all see that, obviously, by the numbers. That's what I'm essentially going by. It's kind of a 3, then you have a bit of a 3, and then a 4 in front of that. That's why I painted it this way on screen, even if there's certainly a bit of a left-leaning drift with this one. Obviously, when I add the subs, it's not going to change dramatically, but it makes it look a bit weird. So we'll just go with what we had on the starting 11 initially. But let's go to the centre-backs. And because he's in the middle, let's start with Wesley Fofana. And I'm intrigued whether you think the same as me, Adash, because I genuinely thought until that pass back to Sanchez that obviously led to the penalty, I actually thought he was really good until then. I thought he defended superbly aggressively. I thought the yellow card that he got was an absolute disgrace, and he did absolutely nothing. And the guy literally tries to bow down and shove his own head into Fofana's elbow and then fall on the ground and ask for a yellow card, and Anthony Taylor literally hands it to him. But I genuinely think he was fantastic before that. But obviously, when you make such a huge mistake, it's not great. It's not great. Obviously, he got bailed out, so in the end, it didn't cost us. But my God, he can't make mistakes like that much more often. Obviously, Fofana usually the wide centre-back and Kobel in the middle, but because we don't have a right-back to invert from the middle, obviously Fofana now has to be in the middle. And you did notice that. I do think it harmed our build-up play a little bit, but I don't think that's going to be something I'm going to criticize Fofana for, because that's more just not as much of his strength as it is Levi Kobel's strength. So, yeah. I will overall, with the error, give Fofana a 6. I think without the error, I think he warrants a 7. And I know Bournemouth created way too many chances today and had a total XG of 1.63. To be honest, I thought it would have been more. I swear when I looked at it earlier, it was more, but seemingly they updated that statistic, I suppose. But yeah, I'll say 6. Adash, what do you think? Do you also think he was good outside of that mistake, or do you not think he was good?
I would say he was decent. I wouldn't necessarily go as far as you. I thought there were a few moments where he was a little bit sloppy, a little bit uncomfortable, which, like you said, I think part of it is down to the exact position that he was playing. But I think at this level, you would expect a little bit more from him, especially given that it was against Bournemouth. And then that mistake was absolutely unforgivable. I mean, everything about that was just like infuriating to me. And I think it's kind of like a double-edged sword that if he doesn't get bailed out by Robert Sanchez, we're talking about a whole different game. And then we're talking about Fofana's performance in a very, very negative light. And I think we can't afford to be making those mistakes. So I think I'll go a little bit lower. I think I'll go for a 5, just because I would penalize him a little bit more for that mistake. And I thought after that mistake, he wasn't necessarily as confident. I don't know if it was down to exactly that kind of instant, but yeah, I would go a little bit lower, so I would go for a 5.
Fair enough. I do also want to mention just quickly, obviously, at the very end, once Tosin came on for Disasi in the 61st minute, and then Fofana played right back, that for me, that is what changed our game. That's why I thought for the last bit of the game, we actually played like a good team, because we didn't constantly get destroyed on transition every 30 seconds of the game, which is what we couldn't deal with in the first half. My God, we just had so many bad touches. We'll get into that as an overall perspective in a minute. Let's just finish on Wesley Fofana and come to you, Bertram. Obviously, I said 6. Adash said 5. Where would you go for Wesley Fofana? What did you make of his performance?
From just watching it, I would probably have given him an 8 before the penalty or without the penalty. But as Adash said, if we conceded from that, we would have viewed his performance in a totally different light. Yeah. So I would dock him, around like 2 points for that. So I think a 6 is fair. I think overall he was actually quite good. I think him and Levi were, defensively quite sound. I think most of the shots we conceded weren't necessarily like one-on-ones towards Sanchez. They were shots from outside the box. I think even some of them they did quite well to shield one side of the goal, so Robert had to only cover one side. So I think defensively, I thought he was quite all right, but it is a very, very big mistake, and he should be penalized for it. So I'd give him a 6 as well.
Fair dues. Obviously, 2 6s and 1 5 still leaves us at a 5.5. I want to just touch on a couple of things off what the chat have said. Joe said, apart from the penalty, Wes was good, and at right back, he was good too. Shay P says Fofana gave the ball away a couple of times and put us in danger. I mean, I did, and there was someone on Twitter, shout out Jimmy, by the way, he was like, he misplaced every pass. I literally just replied with a screenshot of his stats where he had 94% accuracy. I'm like, well, he clearly didn't misplace every pass if he was successful with 87 of 93 of them. Like, I don't think you can be too critical of it, especially compared to some of the mistakes that, we've made over the last few months. I feel like there was no outrageously bad passing in there from Fofana. But there you go. Leaves us at a 5.5. Let's do Colwell, because obviously them two played more so as the two centre-backs than Disasi did. I thought Colwell was really good. And I want to mention 2 specific moments. The first one, that through ball to Nicholas Jackson in the first half, where Jackson shot on his left foot and the keeper saved it. And then that outrageous kind of lofted, curling, bloody through ball over the top to Joao Felix. If only Joao Felix was as good as Pice thinks he is, then that would have been the assist of the season. What an outrageous pass. Like, what an unbelievable task that was. Even, like, defensively, he had 5 out of 7 aerial duels, which is pretty good. Ground duels, not that great. 0 out of 3, to be fair. I didn't have a tackle. The long balls could still be better in numbers because he only had 3 out of 8. But the passing was all right. I genuinely thought overall he was pretty good. Fofana's defensive stats do look a tad better than Kobel in that sense. Obviously, Kobel also busy defending wide areas and mixing and this and that. I will give Kobel I get what Bertram is saying, and most of obviously the problems came through Disasi on the right-hand side. But and I know most of the shots were from outside the box as well, but I still felt like we were under the cosh from Bournemouth almost all game. So I don't want to give them too high. Like, for me, it was complete and pure luck that we didn't concede the goal today. And obviously having a fantastic goalkeeper on the day. That was it for me. Not that we did anything particularly great in terms of defensively. So I don't want to go too high, but I still give him higher than Fofana. I'll give him a 6.5. I am considering a 7, but I do think that without the penalty incident, that Fofana was actually better than Kobel, even if Kobel had obviously better attacking passes, but that was more due to position, I think. So I'll say 6.5, but I'll see what you boys say. Bertram, I'll let you go first. What do you reckon? Is 6.5 fair? Would you go a bit higher than that? What do you reckon?
I would go a bit higher than that. I'd give him like an 8.5, to be honest with you.
But don't you think we conceded a few too many chances against Bournemouth to give a centre-back an 8.5?
I think that most of the shot, I think we were very disjointed, to be honest. And I think I wouldn't place the blame on the quality of chances we conceded. I wouldn't realistically, blame the defender or the center backs for that. The thing is, you touched upon it earlier. I think he had some very good raids up the field. The through ball to Jackson, the ball for Felix. I also thought that defensively he was a monster. We go back to the second half. He had one where he toward the end he had the block. After 90 minutes where we should have got the free kick from Fofana, where he screamed at Anthony Taylor, so that's points in the book as well. But he also had another one where he with his ankle or something, he blocked it over. So he had a couple of match deciding blocks. I thought just out and out defensively, very good. Leadership wise, you could see it was him, pointing around, organizing the defense.
Captain. I cannot believe that Caicedo got the armband today. Like, it's a disgrace. Caicedo hasn't spoken to a teammate in his life. Can you give the armband to someone that actually talks on the pitch, man? Like, this is ridiculous. Like, just give it to Kobel, please.
But we do love the Kobel arc as well. But I think him and Sanchez are pretty much the sole reasons we don't concede. Purely based on the amount of match deciding actions he had, and the fact that I don't place the blame on the chances we conceded on him.
Yeah, I mean, I hear that. And it's not like I'm trying to blame him individually. He was still part of a collective that let that happen. And I think it is, as much as we do individual player ratings here, I think it's always very much important to remember that football is a team sport. And outside of the goalkeeper and maybe sometimes like a striker, if you have an overall bad game, I don't think one of them, like a defender or midfielder, I can ever give higher than a 7, really. If I feel under the cosh by a team that I feel is significantly worse than us. But hey, this is what democracy does. So a 6.5 from me, an 8.5 from Bertram. Let's see what Adash gives him. What you reckon? And also, I quickly want to say, the yellow card that he got, and also partly why ground Yule says 0 out of 3. And also, how can it say 0 out of 0 tackles? It doesn't make any sense. That is literally a tackle. But yeah, it was a perfect side tackle that should have never been a foul, let alone a yellow card. It was the perfect side tackle, and Anthony Taylor is a disgrace. So that's all I wanted to say on that. Adash, rating for Levi Kobel today?
I think I'll go a little bit leaning more towards on the lower end. I'll go for a 7, just because I don't think he's absolved of all the blame for the issues that we had. There were a lot of crosses. Also, I think we were very weak defensively, aerially, and I think that's something where all the defenders take responsibility, but particularly like Caldwell, Fofana, Disasi. But yeah, I mean, I think I love Levi. I think he was excellent today, especially with the forward passing, like you mentioned, those 2 passes in particular. almost like kind of like Cesc-esque passes in some sense. Like it kind of gives me those vibes with the way they kind of loft, where they like just land at the perfect spot. And yeah, it was just really great to see. And I would also say that because Cucurella, in my opinion, was playing a little bit higher than he usually does, I think Kolo was a little bit more isolated, and I think he dealt with that very well. And I think he was still able to manage that left hand side very well defensively, because most of the issues that we had did come from the right hand side. So I'll go for a 7, but yeah, definitely not a bad performance at all.
No, fair dues, fair dues. Like I say, I was thinking between 6.5 and a 7. So I do think a 7 is pretty all right overall. We move on and we go over to good old Axel Disasi. Bacham, I'll let you go before I even start my waffle, because I don't know how long my waffle about the man will be. What would you rate him today? And the difficult part today is how much blame of his bad performance do you give him, and how much of it do you give to the manager for putting him there in the first place?
Probably give him like 2. I think the main things about him is we struggle tactically because of the type of player he is. So that, obviously isn't great. Plus, there were a couple of, personal mistakes as well. He had the one where he thought, I thought, what did he think? Fofana was going to go out and press him, and they got a really good chance out of it. So I think it was really, really just generally very, very bad, if I'm honest. Really didn't make any sense, both tactically and physically. It really didn't make any sense. I think there is, I see a lot of, Disasi hate. And I think there is a place for him in this team. You just look back to when we defend deep, like against City last year. He is a good defender for stuff like that. But firstly, putting him at right back won't really help him. So it's tough because he has been scrutinized, but I place most of the blame on his performance today on Maresca. To be honest with you, I think he's just not the type of player. He might have played there before, but we're trying to, give him this offensive role because we're supposed to have the ball in this game. You talked about the one good game he had was against Mbappe, where it's, purely defending. So I think the blame's probably split, but I'd give him a 2 for that game today.
Fair dues. Adasha, I'll go on to you. On this, RZ, do you agree with the 2? Would you maybe give him even less? And the same question as I put to Bertram, how do you, I guess, split the blame of Disasi's performance between Disasi and the manager?
Yeah, I'm going to go even lower. I'll just give my rating first. I'm going for a 1. I thought it was a very, very bad performance. But I think I would separate the kind of blame element. I think the fact that he played there in the first place is all obviously Maresca's fault, but I still think there were a lot of things that Disasi could have done better in. There were a lot of situations where, for example, I remember one particular time, like we were on the transition back and Bournemouth were countering us, and he was just running back and he couldn't even get his feet set, and the attacker just had a clean run on him because the pass went straight through his legs, but he couldn't sort his feet in time to even try and make an interception or try to tackle it. And I think that's the thing where, like, any kind of defender, you've been taught that so many times. You've gone through that situation so many times in training and in practice that there's no way that you're not prepared for that. And there's no way you can't do better in that situation. I think there were a lot of other instances like that where it's not like he's playing out of position, of course, but there are a lot of things with his like passing, for example, where he just has to do better, regardless of where he's playing at. So I think, it was a pretty bad performance, but not entirely his fault. What I'm more kind of annoyed about is the fact that we had other options that we didn't fully utilize, and those options had a higher upside of actually working out, because we know that this was never going to work in the first place. Nobody on Twitter was like, "Oh, Disasi at right back is the truth. That's our future." But we had so many other options, but Maresca just decided not to use them.
Yeah, and for me, it's one thing to start with it. For me, it's another thing that he kept it until the 61st minute. To me, the latest 20 minutes into the game, you just switch Disasi and Fofana. If you don't want to make the sub with Tosin yet, fine. You just switch them. It's still, and I know Disasi being the central centre back will harm our build-up. I get that. but the way we were under the cosh, because the problem was we gave the ball away so quickly, and obviously that wasn't just Disasi's fault, but we gave the ball away so constantly, and I guess it kind of leads me into a bit more of that broader perspective. Just to quickly finish it off, I will probably also give him a 1. I'll give him that 1 because he was playing out of position, but like Adash said, he also still did so many things wrong where I'm like, okay, yeah, out of position, but you were doing principal things wrong, and that shouldn't happen no matter which position you're playing, especially as him being one of the most experienced players that we have in the team, and most certainly of the ones that started today. But yeah, the big problem for me, particularly in the first half, I mean, Maresca said post-game that we played essentially 2 halves, and I'm like, bro, I don't know what kind of second half you watched, but until the last 20 minutes, we were still shit. So I don't know what you were making up that you think we were good in the second half. We were not. We were absolutely not. We had maybe a decent last 15, 20 minutes. That's it. Like, calm your horses, please. We had 2 chances in the whole fucking game, man. What are you talking about? But yeah, we just couldn't control the ball. Like, we gave the ball away so cheaply, so easily. Everybody seemed nervous. Everybody seemed a bit off. It's not even like, okay, I know we are like giving individual player ratings here, but you know, we're also going to rate the manager. But I think the most difficult part is it's difficult. It's not like it's not one individual's fault. It's not even the manager's fault. It's just like everybody seemed to struggle to get things right, to get in flow today. Like, nobody could have a good touch. Nobody could make simple decisions. And let's also say that we didn't play against a wall. We played against an opponent, and I got to say, Bournemouth were fantastic, in particular in the first half. They were so physically strong, and sure, Anthony Taylor helped them because he could have sent Bournemouth players off in the first half already for multiple fouls, for multiple yellow cards, easily. But of course, he doesn't have the balls to do that against us. Or I say the balls, he just doesn't want to, I assume. But they just won every duel. They just won every second ball. It was unbelievable. I mean, Caicedo had some good touches, but he also had some bad touches and some terrible passes. I remember late in the second half when he tried to, like, on the ground switch to play with his left foot, and he literally rolled it into the path of the Bournemouth defender, like gifting them the counterattack. Like, the lot of them, we could, even Palmer, Madueke, Jackson could control the balls, but as soon as he tried to pass it, every time to the opponent. Palmer, the miscontrols, how he got out-muscled every time. Even Madueke, I mean, he at least got fouls usually, but he didn't get past anyone. I'm not sure if I've ever seen a game where I've not seen Madueke run past an opponent, and that's what watching today anyway felt like. So it was a collective issue for me. Obviously, if you guys want to touch on that, please do as well. But otherwise, we'll move on to Renato Vega, who, oh, I love the man. Oh, no, we don't move on to Renato Vega. Sorry, let's do Cucurella first, because obviously he kind of is part of the back four in principal lineup. So let's do Cucurella first. Well, let's start it off with ridiculous yellow cards that he did get, which is probably why, when he should have got a yellow card, which would have then made it a second yellow card and send him off, that's probably why Anthony Taylor didn't give it, because even that twat realizes I shouldn't have given him that first yellow card, because that second one was clearly a yellow card and should have been a second yellow. But obviously the first one wasn't. So, in the end, I guess it's fair enough. But yeah, what did I make of his performance? Because he was in this attacking area, like, I put him here, but literally sometimes there, especially when Sancho came on for Neto, there was a lot of linking up, and Cucurella could have had 2 assists, if I'm honest. This particular one he should have had. I don't know how Jackson managed to miss it. But I don't think he was great. I don't think he was poor either, though. So I'm going to give him a 6.5, like slightly above average. I don't think he warrants a 7, but I want to give him ever so slightly above an average. Adash, I'll go with you. First of all, if you want to, please touch on that whole, like, collective issue and how no one could string a pass and a touch together. But otherwise, obviously, on Cucurella.
Yeah, I think going back to that earlier issue, I think it was a lot of just, like, body language. Like, you could just see the players weren't up for it. They weren't, like, it felt almost like they didn't really warm up. They were almost just, like, thrown onto the pitch, so they couldn't really. It felt like, it just felt really disjointed. It just felt like it was a very raw game. Like, they weren't prepared for it at all. But moving on to Cucurella, I think, pretty decent performance. Didn't really notice him too much, to be honest. First or second half, I think he was pretty solid overall. I'm not sure if him being higher up the pitch than usual was like a tactical decision, or it was just him 100%. Kind of ending up. Yeah, well, I was going to say, if it was him just kind of roaming into that position, please don't do that in the future. But
no. It's for me, it's like, if you want to tactically explain it, obviously, because usually Enzo fills that role that Cucurella did today. But because we didn't have Enzo, we played Vega in midfield today, but Vega can't do that. We were kind of like, okay, so instead of shifting Cucurella into the midfield next to Caicedo and having Enzo up here, we shift Vega and have Vega next to Caicedo, and then Cucurella needs to do the higher up the pitch stuff, which I would love to know distance covered of today's game, because I'm almost certain Cucurella will have probably 2 kilometers more than any other player in the Chelsea team, because my God, that guy was running up and down that pitch all night long. That's one of the things I love about him. He didn't even look tired by the end, if I'm being honest. So I was a big fan. Adash, sorry, I cut you off there. What rating would you give Cucurella? Would you go along with the 6.5? Would you go a bit lower? What do you think?
I think I might just go a tad bit lower and go for the 6. I don't know if he necessarily warranted getting above that like average rating, but yeah, I would go for a 6.
Fair dues. Bertram, coming to you. I said 6.5. Adash said 6. What would you do for Cucurella? And if after that, maybe you want to touch on the whole, bad touches, couldn't string a pass together, just couldn't get any control over the game. And that's why, the game went as crazy as it did with one attack after the other for Bournemouth.
Well, yeah, I think if we first touch upon the point with the bad touches, it just in a way it looked like we were a team full of ringers who had just like been put together in Bournemouth, a proper team. Which in a sense I think we are. A lot of these players are probably, it's the first time they're starting, games together, at least a Premier League game. So I'd put it down to, the fact that we have a lot of new players and we do need to make connections. I think that should improve in the future, but I do agree that the body language did look very off. It kind of looked like we were missing, something at least. But we've started, we started against Wolves this way. We started now against Bournemouth this way as well. So it's a worrying tendency, because
before the break, right?
Now we were good against Palace before the break, weren't we?
Well, we were good, but we started the game quick. I think we had a chance early, but then in the rest of the first half, it also felt like I guess we had that Madueke chance as well. Maybe I'm misremembering it. We didn't win, so
But you'd hope at least that it gets better. But I think going back to the Cucurella thing, I would probably give him a 6 as well. I think I've been screaming for him to invert. I don't think I'm mistaken when I say this isn't the role that he inverted in last season.
No.
Where I thought he was quite good. When he gets a bit deeper, because this more advanced role didn't really make sense. I think with Neto as well. Perhaps Maresca maybe should have seen that Sancho and Neto are 2 different types of wingers, because we saw when Sancho came on and Cucurella pushed even further forward, because now Sancho's a different type of winger that he was able to link up with Cucurella, because on another day he would have had easily 2 assists, and then we would be rating him differently. So I think almost if you could give him a rating for both halves, I think the second half of Cucurella was much better, but it's also down to who he's playing with. So in general, I think a 6, as Adash went with as well, would be fair. I would hope that we begin to see him more in that CDM role, when Enzo gets back, because I thought he was quite good there. But to be fair, we might disagree on this. I think the first one was, to be honest, I did think it was a yellow, if I'm honest, because it did look like he kicked out on him. I might be remembering it wrong.
You thought he did what? Sorry.
I might be remembering this completely wrong. I was quite frustrated at this point, but it looked like he kind of kicked out when the ball was out of play toward the Bournemouth player. In a way, I think that's what he got.
So what I thought was happening is that the ball was flying in high, and he went in kind of a bit of a shoulder barge into the guy as the ball kind of went out of play. So I'm like, tell him off, and okay, tell him to calm down. But there's no need to book a guy like the ball, for me at least.
But the ball was also in play.
I don't think that's what he got the card for, if I'm honest.
Sorry, say that last bit.
I think he kicks out at the Bournemouth player and gets the card because of that. If you watch,
if he kicked out, I didn't see. I only saw him do the whole shoulder barge thing while jumping.
Yeah, I think he kicked out, and that's why he got the card.
Okay, well, if he did kick out, then I take that back. And then I think he was lucky to stay on the pitch with that second yellow card moment. But even still, Bournemouth had 2 players who should have easily had 2 yellow cards. One of them already in the first half. So
it's like Hughes last game as well.
Exactly, literally exactly that. But let's move on to Renato Vega. And I put in our group chat after 5 minutes already. I'm like, I don't want to judge too soon, but I almost want to say I never want to see Vega play midfield again. And he certainly got better as the game went on, and he had a decent passing accuracy, 89%, 3 out of 3 dribbles. To be fair to him, 2 out of 3 long balls, 2 out of 3 tackles, 6 out of 8 duels. Honestly, the stats look absolutely phenomenal. And there was even good passing moments where he kept it simple, kept it short. Helped us play out through the press very nicely. But there was also moments like when I said that I never want to see him in midfield again, was when in the first few minutes he tried to do like a centre back clearing at the halfway line, but missed the ball to make it even worse. But even if he hadn't missed the ball, bro, you're playing for Chelsea. You're not in the Swiss league anymore. But don't do centre back clearances in midfield, man. Like, come on, control the ball and pass it, man. What is this? But yeah, he certainly got better, and I'm tempted to give him bonus points for that celebration because he didn't care about Nkunku who scored or Sancho, whatever. He was like, I'm off in the fans. And he just jumped over the fence and into the crowd. Got himself booked for it because Anthony Taylor, he had to make sure everybody got booked. What a celebration. Absolutely love the guy. Absolutely love the guy. Do I think he was great? No, but the stats say he was absolutely unbelievable. So I'm a little bit confused now. I don't know, for who he is. And I know he played midfield for Basel, but I still think you look at him and he's just so clearly got centre-back, left centre-back written all over him. Much more so than he does midfield or left back. Maybe I'll give him a 6. I was initially thinking a 5, but maybe because I also, as much as he played there for Basel, this was also his first Premier League start, I'm pretty sure. So, like, maybe because of that, I'll still give him a 6. And like I say, the stats have surprised me. The stats, like I say, it's absolutely amazing. So I don't know what to do about that. But Bertram, what do you think? Did you think Bertram Vega was good? Did you, when I read out the stats now, did that surprise you that he has such good stats?
I think the thing with stats is they can be quite misleading because
of course they can.
Yeah, of course. But I think a lot of the passes that he did make were not simple, but I think when I watched him, I think as you touched upon, for who he is, I think he's not the type of player that we should be playing in the role. I think he does bring some very good things, some physicality, some passion, as we saw with the celebration as well. So in that sense, he gives what he has to offer. He signed him for, so it's hard to knock him for anything else. I just thought that we really struggled with him, building up, especially in the first half, because he's not casted to be a midfielder. And I think just his pure presence of not being in the right position, if
can I quickly interrupt you there? Judging by the fact that we loaned out Santos and Ugojukwu, I would argue that maybe he is classed as a midfielder in our minds of the manager and the sport directors, because otherwise, if he doesn't count as a midfielder in their heads, I can't imagine that they'd loan all these players out. Like, him being counted as a midfielder is the only way I can somehow reason that in my head, if that makes sense.
I think that does make sense, but I would argue
you would just
that
disagree.
No, I would say that he might be a different type of midfield. I can see the CDM profile, but I think if you have someone like a Correa, he's technically better. Yeah. I think an Enzo, a Caicedo, they're technically better, and I just thought that we lacked that profile of a midfielder very much in our build-up play today. I think it would maybe have been beneficial for us in a way to have seen what happened.
Almost instead of Caicedo, sorry to interrupt you again, with Enzo, I think that would work much better than the way it did today, for example.
I think as well, because I just think the way that if we'd had an Enzo-type player there, we would have had more options passing out. I think just sometimes, and that's just down to lack of experience, which you can't knock him for. I just think our build-up play struggled because he played. I think, yeah, exactly as the comment says. But I just think we need to accept that this is Viega's, first couple of games for a big club, first couple of games for us in a new system, all these things. So it's gonna be hard to knock the guy for it. But I think a 6, maybe be fair. I don't think he did anything super well. He had a couple of nice touches. I just think the type of player he was or he is, might not be the right player for us in this game, at least. I still think he does, give us some things like the physicality, but realistically, you would hope not to see him in this exact position again.
Yeah, no, I do agree. And before I get to Adash, just to quickly reply to Crispy here, I agree with you 100% until the last point. As far as I know, and I can't check this while Adash speaks, for Basel, I think he played more games in midfield than he played in any other position. So I know when you look at him, he's so clearly not a midfielder when you look at him. But actually, it isn't as much out of position now. Not used to it for Chelsea and everything, sure. But he's certainly played in midfield actually quite a lot. But yeah, it should be mentioned that he is only 21. As much as he looks like a prime example for someone whose passport or birth certificate was fake, because how is he 21, man? He looks at least 28. Fucking hell. How's he done that then? But Adash, finish it off for us. Do you agree with a 6 for Vega? Would you give him something different? What do you reckon?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to change the rating, but I would give him an extra 0.5 just for the celebration. He's proper Chelsea, so we always love to see it. Um, but yeah, I think to me his performance is very interesting in the sense like I can see how his stats came out to be very good because he almost seemed a little bit conservative with a lot of his passing and just with the nature of like how he was playing. Um, and I'm not sure. I don't think that's his natural play style. Like if he was to play as a center back, I think we would see a lot different, a lot more aggressive kind of version of him. But I think
Mhm.
just with this new possession based football that he's been playing, and also with the new position that he's been playing, I think it just both combines to the fact that he wasn't necessarily the most comfortable in the role today, like like you guys mentioned. And I think that's kind of at the end of the day what it is. But yeah, I think it wasn't a bad performance by any means. Didn't have any like outrageous moments. Didn't have any. There was one moment where he just took a shot out of nowhere. When he was like outside the box and it like looped up and then it like landed straight at the keeper and I was like, "What are you doing, man?" But
Yeah.
apart from that, apart from that, no real like bozo moments per se.
No.
So yeah, I'll give him a 6.5. Just an extra touch for the celebration at the end. But yeah, I agree with everything you guys mentioned.
Fair dues, fair dues. And we will move on to Moises Caicedo in a second. I just thought I'd bring it up quickly for Crispy, but for everybody else as well. As you can see, in his career, he's actually played by far the most games as a defensive midfielder. 40 of them. If you include central midfield as kind of a similar position, it's actually 46 games there, while he barely gets to 20 in all the other games and all the other positions that he's played. So that is surprising, but actually the case. So yeah, that is that. We move on to Moises Caicedo. And again, I have no idea what to think. So, Adash, I'm going to throw you under the bus and make you go first on him because I've seen someone in the chat talk about how great he was, and I just didn't notice him being particularly great. He was a 115 million pound midfielder next to Renato Vega, who is a 14 million euro player who arguably is being played out of position by playing in midfield, even though he played that nearly all his career, and Cucurella playing as almost a number 10. And he was the only actual midfielder in there. And was he decent? Sure. Was he good? For me, no. Like, stats not bad. 85% accuracy, 2 out of 4 long balls, 2 out of 4 tackles, 7 out of 9 ground duels is actually really strong, to be fair. 0 out of 0 out of 3 aerial duels. Not that fantastic, I suppose. But I just don't think he imposes himself like a 150 million pound player should. And is that his fault that we played that much? No. But I would probably say the same if he cost 80 million instead. I also don't think he imposed himself like an 80 million pound player should. But for me, the most frustrating thing is that he was running around with the armband today. Like, that just annoys me. Like, and I know Reece James kind of falls in that category a little bit as well. But there are very few things annoy me more than giving their captain's armband to shy, quiet players. Stop doing that. Like, it's literally the job of a captain to be vocal, to be like, to talk to the ref, to talk to his teammates, to talk to the opponents. Like, it's literally his job. Like, I know he's not the main captain. He was only given it because Reece isn't there and Chilwell isn't being used and Enzo was ill. I know that. But still, like, give it to fucking Como, man. I'd even rather you give it to Rob Sanchez than you give it to Caicedo. Dude, like, it's like when we gave Kante the armband sometimes. I'm like, no, these guys are not captains. As a captain, you need to be vocal and a leader and not be the quiet guy that does all the work, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that. But don't wear the fucking armband. And I know most people are going to think, why is he crying about something again? But these things just annoy me. Do you know what I mean? In terms of his performance, again, like I say, I was struggling. Was he better than the other two? Probably. So I'm going to say 6.5. Adash, what do you think?
Yeah, I was gonna go exactly the same. I was gonna go for 6.5. I think he was better than the other two, but not by like, yeah, like a more accurate rating would be like a 6.1 for me. Like he was like just that tiny bit better than the other two, but it wasn't so much that it's like clearly distinguishable. I mean, I agree on the captain stuff, and I think that's also like down to personal preference. But not gonna knock him. He's not gonna say no to
It's
getting
not
getting the armband. Yeah, another thing for Maresca, but yeah, I mean, I think today his tackling, which you mentioned in the stats, I think it reflected well. I think his tackling was pretty effective and good when he did it. But apart from that, I honestly didn't really notice him that much. So there wasn't too much that I can kind of positively say that he did this or he did that, except for like that tackling. So I guess that's like a positive for him, and that's why I'm going to bump it up to a 6.5.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I mean, a couple of people in the chat, including Crispy, solid 7 for Caicedo. He also rescued us from some counters of set pieces. JP, easy 7 for me. Mason, Caicedo was very good today. He was good. Really, I thought he was very good also. Duvan just thinks I dislike Caicedo. I don't. But fair enough if you think that. It's all right. You think what you want to think. Bertram, though, 2 6.5s. Is that where you'd go? Do you agree with the chat? Would you give him a 7, maybe potentially higher? What did you make of Caicedo?
I disagree with that. I give him a 7.5, to be honest. I think you're talking about imposing yourself. I think he had some very, very, especially in the first half, very, very good tackles. Almost Kante-esque. I also thought that when we were trying to play out of possession, sometimes he kind of, glided through the midfield. A lot of times he dribbled out of the press. A lot of times as well. I thought he was very, very instrumental. I caught myself a lot of times during the second half being impressed about how he dribbled out of pressure and got us out of very dangerous situations. So I thought he was very, very good today, and I did think he imposed himself. And my commentator touched upon it as well with him and with Fofana. Just if they'd misplaced a pass or done something, they always mention the price tag. And I think for players in this role, it's always going to be difficult for them to live up to that price tag. So I think it's tough to level it against them. But for my money, I thought he was very, very good today.
In your position,
of course, but I
don't feel like he's a top 5 in his position.
Well, if we give him a fair shout, this is the start of his 3rd season in England. He's coming into a very disjointed team with a disjointed manager, new players, and I still think he was very good. And I still think when I look at him, I see a top quality player. As the comment says, he was in South America as well. I just think defensively, very good on the ball, very good. Passing wise, nothing to write home about, but with especially the defending and the dribbling today, at least I thought was very, very good. So for me, miles ahead of the other midfielders, I'd give him a 7.5.
Fair enough. Obviously, leaving us at a 7 overall, and maybe that's part of it. What you said there at the end as well, that passing wise, there wasn't that much to shout about, and maybe that's also part what I meant. It didn't impose himself, because I'm like, well, Enzo isn't there today, so a bit more of the creative impetus is on you today, Caicedo, because you're playing with Vega. I'm not expecting Vega to play, line splitting passes. So if Enzo ain't there, I know Caicedo can do it, and I didn't feel like he did, if I'm honest. But like Mason said, smash the likes. Doesn't cost anything, and it really helps me out. So please do that. It would be massively appreciated. And remove that stuff in the first half, walk pace, playing out from the back was dreadful. I think you're more overall commenting, not on Caicedo. All right. Let's move on to, I guess, Cole Palmer then. It's probably next in line. Don't know what to make of Cole today either. It's all right. Passing 83%, I guess pretty good. 2 out of 3 dribbles, 0 out of 3 crosses, 2 out of 2 long balls. 8 out of 11 ground duels. Bloody hell, that's impressive. Didn't feel like he won 8 out of 11 ground duels when I watched the game, if I'm being honest. I don't know, like a 6.5, I'm thinking. I don't know, but what would you give Palmer?
Probably just give him, under average. I think for the player he is, for how little, especially during the second half, he imposed himself, I'd give him a 5.5, to be honest. I think some of it is down to the fact that we shifted him out to right wing as well. At some point, I thought he wasn't as influential. I just think for his standards, you would expect more. I think maybe he had one good pass in the first half, maybe. But I also think he was quite isolated. And I really, really don't know why. Because I think this is the position we saw him in against Wolves, where he was very, very good. Maybe, they put Cook on him as well to cover him, which I think he did quite well, to be honest, even on a yellow. I think it's sometimes tough because, last season, he was quite an unknown quantity, so many teams didn't really know what to expect from him, and maybe didn't expect that much from him. But now he's very renowned, as we've seen with the Euros as well. So teams are going to double up on him, and he needs to find a way to make that work. But I just feel like he didn't really do anything today. And with the player he is, he's supposed to, in a way, save us. And I did think he did that. So for his high standards, I'd give him below average.
Yeah, there you go. My struggle with it is always like, I mean, when I look at these ratings overall, other than Disasi and Fofana, well, and Sanchez, because I agree with that one, I think all ratings are a tad high almost, because I still think we were the much worse team against Bournemouth today. And if we have expectations of getting top 4, let alone higher than that, I don't understand why we've given out such high ratings for being the worst team against Bournemouth, if I'm being perfectly honest, guys. But here we are. As for Palmer, though, I don't know. I just felt like in that area of the pitch, for Palmer and Jackson, to me, had by far the most difficult job today, because Bournemouth cluttered that area so much. And I know that makes the job for these three also difficult, because where do they put the ball? But for these two, the job was like there was no space. Like every time they got the ball, they got like clattered into by someone somehow. And to be fair play to Bournemouth, because they managed to clatter into us without opening spaces up very often. So that, from their perspective, was certainly well done. Yeah, like I mean, I said 6.5. I was also thinking 5.5. I'll probably go along with it, but I'll see what Adash says. Maybe he can convince me into something else as well. Adash, what did you make of Cole Palmer? What rate would you give him?
To be fair, I think I would go, if you're comparing it to like anybody else or just like a random person's performance, I'd probably go for a 6. But I think for his standard, I'll go a little bit lower, and I'd say probably like between a 5 and a 5.5. I'm not fully decided. I think he had some nice turns, a couple nice flicks. He had like one or two moments with Nani where he kind of like played a good pass, or like the pass was almost there. There was one time where there was a pass that was like almost there for Jackson, which would have had him one-on-one with the keeper, but it got cut out the last minute. I think not all of that is necessarily his fault, and he's obviously allowed to have off days. But yeah, to be honest, this felt like an above average Joao Felix performance, like what people think Joao Felix actually is, where he has those kind of nice turns, nice flicks, but there isn't really that much after that. But for Palmer, this is like a below average game, which should tell you a lot about both those players. But I think I'll go, I don't know if my rating would influence the final rating. I think I might go for 5. I'll just go a little bit lower. Because I think, like you mentioned, the ratings we have been giving out are a little bit high.
Yeah, and on that note, because I think that we have plenty of votes in our man of the match poll, which clearly fell out towards Rob Sanchez with 59% of the 238 votes. So big up Rob Sanchez for getting man of the match award from my live chat. I'll give you a poll to give Cole Palmer a rating. Cole Palmer rating out of 10. And well, I'll only give you the options between 5 and 5.5, guys, because that's kind of what we're in between. So if you think higher, obviously just take the higher one of your options. If you think lower, take the lower one of your options. And we'll come back to it and see what the chat has decided. And we shall go with that in the end. Not 7.5, that'll be a tad high. And we move on to Pedro Neto. And honestly, extremely disappointed by him. Extremely disappointed. Did absolutely fuck all. Literally fuck all. And already did fuck all in the last game, where he was hooked at halftime. Was hooked at halftime again today. Really poor. And I think what I'm noticing is when we play against the low block, Neto either doesn't play or needs to play on the right. Or if we play a game where we can counterattack, then you play him on the left. But against the low block, Neto on the left is a complete waste. Unless you have a great aerial strike in the middle, because Neto can cross very well with his left, so then he can just beat a man crossing. But because Jackson is incapable in the air, we know that is one big fault, as much as he has a few other faults as well. But his main big issue for me is heading. And I know you already scored a header, but that was a completely free, easy header from 2 yards out. He's still poor in the air and winning aerials. So if you had, like, say, Osimhen in the middle or prime Didier Drogba, then Neto on the left, fair enough. But when we don't have someone that will win a header in the middle, Neto either should not play or play on the right. And at the moment, with Madueke's form, even though he wasn't great today either, Neto doesn't get in the team. And I'll be honest, I actually expected Sancho to start today. I thought because he was here in all of pre-season, the way Maresca kept praising him, saying we need him so much to break down low blocks. And today literally proved everything Maresca said on Sancho. He's like, we need his quality to break down low blocks. And that was proven today. So yeah, Neto fix up because, okay, so far the one problem worry we all had was his injuries. So far he's managed to stay fit, but my God, he's done fuck all on the pitch. And it's a bit disappointing. It's very disappointing, actually. It's a bit unfortunate for Neto, obviously, that Madueke found such amazing form, because I think otherwise Neto would have just played on the right and probably would have looked better. But yeah, the way he played today, I'm barely giving him more than Disasi, because he literally did nothing. Like 10 out of 15 passes only attempted one dribble, failed at that. Like, it was so poor. I'm intrigued to see whether you guys think it was that poor. Maybe I could have gone to 3, but something like 2 or 3, I'm thinking anyway. Adash, I'll let you go first. Do you agree with what I've said about Neto? Have I gone a little bit too harsh? And what do you think about his positioning? Do you feel what I've said in terms of when you play a low block, play him on the right, when you can counter, then it's fine to play him on the left?
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me, I was originally thinking along the lines of a 4, but after hearing what you were saying, I think I do agree with a lot of the points you made. I think it was also the fact that after the second half, and the fact that we won, my opinion just generally kind of raised for everybody. So I kind of forgot about how bad. Yeah, I forgot about just how bad the first half was. So I'll go for a 3, kind of in the middle. But yeah, on his performance, obviously was not good. He had some kind of moments right at the beginning where I thought, okay, maybe he can burn like the fullback, and maybe he can have some kind of joy. I think he still can have success on the left. I think it's just a case of one thing that I've noticed so far is that he also takes the ball right to the touchline for some reason. Like, he takes the ball or straight to the byline, sorry.
Because
he takes
and that's why he projected that way.
But you could still just cross the ball earlier. I mean, like, there's no reason to take it all the way up.
If we had someone in the box that he would feel comfortable crossing it to, we'd probably be doing that. But
well, I mean, if you have a player like Nkunku to make a cutback run or something like that, those are the kind of players that you could try to cut it back to or do things like that. I'm saying it's a possibility. But in general, I think he would probably be more effective on the right, but I think Madueke would still be better than him on the right, at least on current form. And regardless, I think from now onwards, I don't think he's going to be starting for the next few games, given how Sancho played on the left and given how Madueke has been playing. But definitely was a poor performance. Hopefully, maybe his speed and athleticism off the bench would be a bigger asset and utility for us. So maybe in games to come, it's possible that kind of weapon is better used kind of in our attack, because I think it's also a case of like our attackers don't really necessarily know what he's going to do and don't know what to do with his kind of pace, because he can just run by the defender, but because he's left-footed, like at the end of the day, what can he do? His options are so limited that kind of limits our entire like attack in a sense, almost.
Absolutely. Adash Bertram, sorry. Do you think we've gone too harsh? Do you agree with us? Well, what is your assessment of Neto? What do you think of, like, positionally, depending on the opponent? Did you see where I'm coming from with, like, against a low block, him on the left, unless you have a good target man in the middle, doesn't really help much?
I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I think we need to see him for more games, but I think today, yeah, I agree. He was poor. I think last week as well was poor. I think against Wolves, when we had a bit more space, I think he was very, very effective.
Yeah.
I think today, too, more than fair. Almost give him an NA, to be honest, if he hadn't played a half.
Yeah.
Really didn't do much. Probably not the right, type of player for, our left wing for this game. But I still think he has some quality. Just really didn't show today. So I think a 2 is more than fair.
Fair dues. Overall, that leaves us at a 2.5. And move over to Andoni Madueke, who I honestly won't give that much more, but he did do a little bit more. Obviously, he had that shot that went out for a throw-in. I know it was because the guy was barging into him as he was shooting. But yeah, it wasn't your usual Noni performance, which was interesting. Like I said, I mean, let me look at his dribbles. To be fair, he did supposedly attempt 4 and succeed at 3. Don't remember those happening, but it's still good that at least the stats do say that. So with that, I'll probably give him a 4. And maybe that's harsh. And maybe without his recent great games, I would have given the same performance, maybe a 5. But with how good he's been recently, I honestly go into games at the moment, even more so than with Cole Palmer, and I'm expecting Madueke will be that guy today. And I was going into today's game, and I was thinking like, yeah, Madueke probably score a couple of goals, maybe get an assist, probably be a best player again. That's how I went into this game, and judging by that, I thought it was quite poor. But at the same time, I'm seeing even less than that. 3.5, 3. Do you know what I mean? I'm gonna say 4, but we'll see what the boys say. Bacham, what do you think? What would you give Noni Madueke? Is 4 too high compared to Neto's 2.5? That's maybe I can see an argument for that.
I would agree with JP in the chat. I think a 3 is fair. He didn't really do anything as well. I think he was maybe a bit better because that might be because Cole Palmer was on his side as well. I just think in general our attackers today, at least the ones who started, weren't very effective at all. Didn't really say much to me. I think maybe they were countered well by Bournemouth's defenders, but as you said, Madueke has to deal with the fact that we have high standards of him now, and he didn't really do anything or live up to them. Which is fine, that's how it is. Some of these games. I think last game even he was quite good. Just today didn't really do much, and I think a 3 for me is what give him.
Yeah, fair enough. So far, leaving us at a 3.5. And I'll come to you, Adash. Do you side with more Bertram on this, with myself, maybe somewhere in the middle? But what did you make of Madueke? What rating would you give him?
I'll go a tad bit higher. I'll go for the 4. I thought still he was poor. I think between the 3 and the 4, both of them mean that he wasn't great. He didn't live up to the standard that we expect of him. But he did have a couple of decent moments. It wasn't like somebody like Neto where there were like no real chances that he created or that he put himself into, where Madueke he had that one pass to Jackson where arguably he should have played it earlier, but still could have been an assist if Jackson had potentially timed the run differently.
In their build-up to it, at least.
Yeah, precisely. They also had some decent moments where he would try to run at the defenders. But still, I think it could also be the case that it's kind of like almost like he's coming off the high of his first ever England cap, and maybe then having that kind of extra international week of fixtures maybe kind of tired him out. So that's a possible explanation for what we saw.
But yeah,
that's still true. But yeah, still expecting a lot of him. So hopefully he can get back to the form that we saw pre-international break.
And I'm sure he can. That's one of the things I rate so much about Noni Madueke, because he seems so confident that with Mudryk, you feel like if he has a bad game, he's going to be terrible for the next 3 weeks now. Not that I see at the moment where Mudryk will get a game other than in the Conference League, if we're being honest. But now that we've signed Sancho, and with the way Sancho started today, we'll get to him soon, obviously. But with Madueke, that will never be a concern. That he's like, all of a sudden, he's not going to have enough confidence to, I don't know, take men on or whatever. That will never happen. So that is a positive, I suppose.
And even within the game, sorry, I was just going to say, within the game, even when he loses the ball or even when a dribble doesn't go his way, he never puts his head down. It's always like, next dribble up, next play, I'm going to try and avenge that kind of loss, or whichever defender kind of tackled me. It's always that kind of attitude, which is exactly what a winger needs, because being a winger is such a high volume position that if you were able to beat your man 3 or 4 times and you're able to do it successfully at a high level, then you're still going to get that output in the end, which I think is one of the biggest positives for Madueke that he has in favor of him.
Yeah, no, I do agree. I do agree with that. Bertram, why don't you go first on Nicholas Jackson? I think a very difficult one to rate because, like I touched on earlier, I think Jackson and Palmer had I guess alongside Disasi being out of position, had the most difficult jobs tonight. But he most certainly weren't great. What did you make of the 2 chances? I think, 3. The cross, the low cross from Cucurella that he just missed, even though we never got to see a good replay of it. So I guess, what did you make of those 3 chances? Should he have done much better on any of those? My biggest issue was honestly more so when he dropped deep, that his link-up play was just really poor today. Even if his stats don't suggest that, supposedly he only misplaced 3. But yeah, that was my feeling anyway. What did you make of him? What did you make of the chances? And what rating would you give him?
I think my commentators at least kind of blasted him for missing the one-on-one, the one where the goalkeeper saved it. I thought he did quite well, to be honest. I think it's a difficult angle to score from.
On the weak foot as well, like.
I don't know. Did he stay on side for the Madueke pass? Because he looked kind of off.
I think he looked on ever so slightly, but difficult to judge. But I feel like the pass came too late anyway, so I wouldn't even be too critical of the run. Like he has to move forward. He can't just stand, because if he stands and he gets the pass, everybody will complain that he's flat-footed. So like it's a catch-22 a little bit.
Yeah, you might be right. I think that might change the rating a bit. I think the Cucurella one we didn't really see a replay of, but I think you just, in a way, perhaps just need to run into it and hope it comes. And in the end, it didn't. Maybe you could say if he'd seen Madueke had done the same run, he could have done something different. But I think we're nitpicking there. I just think he had a tough role, as you touched upon earlier. I think it would be difficult for him realistically to do anything with the players that he has around him, or at least the game they played today. So I might give him a slightly higher rating than the others. I gave Madueke a 3. I'd probably give him a 3.5. Thought he was slightly better, or at least he had more difficult circumstances. At least I at least thought he was closer to scoring. At the first half, he was realistically our most dangerous player. So I think that does pull him up slightly. But with his typically high level, with his build-up play as well and creativity, I didn't think he lived up to standards. So 3.5 for me.
Yeah, no, I think that is fair. I think in terms of the chances that you mentioned, I think the most frustrating one for me was when he got actually played through on his right and took a bit too long to shoot, and then the defender got the block in. That was the one that frustrated me most, because obviously the shot where he did hit, the ball on target and the keeper saved it, at least he got a shot away, but also it was his weak foot. So I'm a bit more lenient when it comes to weak foot than it. In that situation, just waited too long, or didn't have enough awareness of the slide coming through. Because remember, like Palmer's goal away at Luton last year, like if you waited long enough, you could just let the guy slide past you. But if you shoot exactly the moment as he comes flying in, you don't have enough awareness then, or waited too long, whichever way you want to look at it. I'd probably have gone 3, ever so slightly higher than Neto, because I think Neto had an easier job to do something and still did nothing. And Jackson did a few things, sure didn't do them great, but he was, frankly, until Sancho came on, Jackson was the only person on the pitch for Chelsea that caused the threat. Whether it was the run that allowed Levi's through ball, no one else was making runs like this. Whether it was the run to allow his first chance, sure, he's the striker, so you're kind of like, he's supposed to be that guy, but I still think people just because someone is supposed to do something doesn't mean you can't praise them for doing it. Do you know what I mean? That's my take on it anyway. So I'll probably go a little bit lower than Bertram and say 3, but let's see what Adash thinks. What would you give Nicholas Jackson, bro?
Yeah, I'm going to go for the 3 as well. I thought just mainly, not even comparing to Neto, I think he was worse than Madueke also. I think just, I understand that he didn't have the easiest job today, but it is also a case of like, he had certain opportunities and he should have done slightly better with them. Like even the offside chance, I think like you have to keep trying to time your run as well as possible. Try to stay onside as long as possible.
I still think he was onside personally, but we'll never.
Yeah, and but then once again, also just know where your defenders are. Know when when you're able to take a touch. Know when you have to shoot it first time. That kind of situational awareness, I think. He's only been playing striker for like 18 months now. But I think like over time, that kind of awareness and that kind of ability needs to start growing. We need to start seeing those kind of traits in him. Not to say he hasn't been improving. Obviously, he's been improving. He's improved a lot over the course of the entire last season. But I think we need to continue to see that. And I think there were still some situations where he should be doing better, or I think he could be doing better. But yeah, I think honestly, I'm not too sure what to make of his performance. It was a little bit of a weird one, where like I don't know how much of blame to put on him personally, as opposed to just like the situation that he was dropped into. But yeah, it is what it is.
That is tricky to judge. That is the tricky part of it, isn't it? Let's go through the subs. And in this case, some of the subs had very much a crucial impact on the game. Obviously, Sancho coming on for Neto at halftime. Then in the 61st minute, we made a double sub for Tosin coming on for Disasi, and Joao Felix coming on for Andoni Iraola. And then very late on, 79th minute, so barely over 10 minutes to go, Nkunku came on for Nicholas Jackson. Let's start with Jadon Sancho, shall we? His debut for Chelsea. When the signing was kind of announced or was getting close to whatever it happening, it's weird because a few years ago I would have literally bitten your hands off to get Jadon Sancho when he was like popping off the scene at Dortmund initially, right? What a player he was there. And to be honest, he looked like a very good player again at Dortmund for the second half of the season, but he was still very ineffective. He looked good, but didn't have a lot of assists, didn't have a lot of goals, even though Dortmund had a good second half of the season. Obviously make it to the Champions League final and everything. But I always said if Sancho keeps his discipline in order, doesn't throw his fit when he doesn't get to play, doesn't like turn up late, doesn't like not work hard enough for training. If he does those things right, I actually believe quite a lot in that he could be quite good, if I'm being perfectly honest. I was very impressed. I will read what Adash put in the chat here in just a minute because I can't speak and read at the same time. He did exactly what I want from a winger. That is what I want a winger to do, what Jadon Sancho did today. And Madueke does it very often as well, but Sancho just looks a little bit more smooth and silky with it. The way he nutmegged the guy who ran around him, the little flicks and how he takes like two players in front of him, not a single thought about turning around and passing back. Not a single thought about doing that. Mudryk sees one player, the first thing he'd want to do is pass it back to Sanchez. Not with Sancho, not at least today. Like Mudryk's first game also, it wasn't like that. Do you know what I mean? So give Sancho a year at Chelsea. Maybe he'll also be terrible. But for now, today he was certainly brilliant. And he more than changed the game. The assist to Nkunku. Obviously, Nkunku still had a lot to do, and Nkunku did phenomenally well with it. We'll get to him, obviously, in a few minutes. But yeah, Sancho was absolutely fantastic. I think as a sub, I'm genuinely not sure why I'm not giving him a 10 with a star, if I'm being honest, but I'll say 9 just because 10 seems a bit outrageous for playing. To be fair, he played the second half. I don't even have to give him a star rating. Okay, because he's not going to star rating, I'm giving him a 9 full stop. Maybe he warrants a 10, I'll be honest. But maybe you do need at least a goal to get 10. But yeah, in terms of how much more can you influence a game than he did, absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Also love the fact that, I don't love that he got booked, but I love that he was already like moaning at Anthony Taylor. So, Sancho's already proper Chelsea and knows that we hate Anthony Taylor. So I'll say 9. Adash, what would you give Jadon Sancho today and how happy are you with him? But actually, before that, I will read out what you put in our chat here. A quote from Maresca who said, I said already when we brought in Jadon, I said already when we brought him in, Jadon was what we were. I can't read. I said already when we brought in Jadon. Maybe the sentence doesn't make sense. We were looking for another winger like Noni. We were looking for the same on the left side with Jadon. And then others said Mudryk is done. Yeah, doesn't look good for Mudryk. I agree with that. But Jadon did literally prove that. And like how many games did I see with Sterling and Mudryk not having a single clue how to play a pass to Cucurella or the opposite? And Sancho and Cucurella were like doing link ups like crazy. I was like, what is happening? I've never seen Cucurella link up like this with a winger ever. So how has this happened in his first game? So yeah, I was very impressed. Adash, talk to me about Sancho, man.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I honestly always knew that there was a player in there. I just thought the situation at United was that he was never going to make it. And I think it's kind of like a situation where it's not going to work out, but it could work out anywhere else. And that's kind of what I felt with Sancho. So I was a little bit more kind of on the positive end of the spectrum with regards to the signing in the first place, just because I thought that there was some upside to it. But yeah, today, I mean, what more could you have expected? He got the assist. He took on defenders. He was able to make plays. There was that one dribble. There was that one nutmeg, which was outrageous. And then there was that one dribble where he cut it back to Jackson, who curled it past the post. That was an amazing cutback as well. And yeah, I think one thing that I didn't really expect of him was his ability to go down the line, because playing on the left as a right winger, didn't expect him to go down the line as much as he did, which I think having that kind of two-way versatility is so important and adds so much more dynamism as a winger. And I think the fact that he does offer that, I think, is just a really, really great asset. So hopefully this is just the start and he continues to build off of these performances, but should absolutely be starting based on merit. And if he continues these performances, then 20 million is going to be one of the steals of the summer, or going to be one of the steals of next summer, when we make that like obligation to buy.
100%. And it wasn't it the whole, didn't Jadon Sancho at Man United start the whole 007 meme of 7 games, 0 goals, 0 assists, and whatever? Didn't that start with Sancho at United? Well, thankfully he's not at Man United anymore because he got himself a goal contribution in the very first game. Bertram, do you agree? I mean, Adashra, did you agree with the 9, yeah? Or would you give him something different?
Yeah, I agree with the 9 as well. I'll give him a 9 as well.
Very good. Coming to you, Bertram, obviously tell me whether you agree with the rating or not. But speak to me. First of all, what did you think of when we signed Jadon Sancho? Did that excite you? Was there a lot of concerns within you? And what did you make of him today?
I think Sancho is one of those like weird players where in a way it does excite you because you've seen, his highest level at Dortmund. But I also think we've seen firsthand in the Premier League, he's even scored against us. But, his Premier League performances haven't really been that good. But on the same hand, I was thinking of this one of the last couple of days that, no player realistically goes to Man United and is good, after they sign for them. Maybe like Bruno these past couple of years, but there isn't really a player who goes there and improves. And there may be a number of reasons for that. But I think for the price we pay,
that problem kind of also applies to Chelsea a little bit. Not maybe as badly as United.
I think we have many more players who have improved since coming to us. But I see your point.
Yeah, of course, because we signed 1,500 players, so
and they're all 12. So there's a long way to go. But
likely to improve. Yeah, oh my God.
But no, I think excited. I think fair enough. I think we've seen as I said before, his high level. I thought after today, I'm much more impressed because the things he was able to do last season against Mainz and Augsburg and the likes, I think we saw today. I think he really, really he gave us something else because Neto is very good, as we said before, cutting up and down the line or cutting up and down the line and losing the ball. I think Sancho was good at taking players on. He was very successful in his dribbles as well. I think his passing as well, with Cucurella, but also even the pass. We're going to talk about Nkunku later. Great piece of skill. The pass as well needs to be good because he's surrounded by like 3 players.
Just realistically, to add to what you just said, by the way, he was dispossessed 0 times and he only misplaced 2 passes. So he literally only gave the ball away on 2 occasions in the whole second half,
which is very, very impressive and just shows his level and commitment as well. So, to be honest, I think for I would have probably, if you come to me first, maybe give him like an 8.5. But I think I'm not going to really dispute a 9 by the fact that he came in and changed the game with an assist and just his overall play. But as long as he keeps training, keeps the level high, I think we have a real steal here because that looked very, very promising.
Yeah, no, it truly, truly did. I was really, really impressed. I have to be as honest as that. Much to say about Tosin and Felix. Tosin, I thought we looked better than with Disasi, but I felt that was more about Fofana being at right back. Tosin kept it simple, but I think by the time that sub happened, Bournemouth didn't really attack anymore. And then it was kind of like us on the front foot, and that kind of alleviated a lot of pressure from the defense, kind of inadvertently. You were trying to say something, Bertram? Gone?
I was just going to cut in and say I'd give him a 7. I thought he really shored things up. I think he had a couple very, very impressive defensive actions. He had one where he kind of shielded the Bournemouth player away. Sanchez came and picked it up just before we scored. So very, very impressive. Very calm.
He was calm. That's what happens when a player is not 21 but actually 26. Shock. Who would have thought?
In fairness, Disasi is 26 as well.
Yeah, but he's terrible. Yeah. To be fair,
fair enough.
If Disasi played as the central centre back, he also would have looked a million times better than he did at right back. So if you put Tosin at right back, he probably also would have looked terrible. So it's one of those. But to be honest, I'm not going to dispute it. I'm just going to go along with it. Like Adash, will you also go along with that for Tosin?
Yeah, likewise. Yeah, don't more that.
Very good. Joao Felix, I'm kind of tempted to give him an NA. I don't really know anything that he did other than not control that outrageous pass by Cobble well enough. And let me be clear, it's an outrageously difficult pass to control. And I would never believe that I myself would be able to control it. But Joao Felix is obviously a phenomenally gifted footballer, technically. So him alongside Palmer, probably maybe Sancho now, I guess Neto probably, but the few players who I think maybe you could take this, like could control this ball and take it down. But yeah, it wasn't really working. I mean, he wasn't bad, but yeah, either he gets a 5.5 or he gets an NA. What do you reckon, Bertram?
I'd go Nene as well. He didn't really do anything for me.
Yeah, there you go. Adash, I mean, you're kind of outvoted anyway, but I assume you agree, right? There you go.
Yep.
And then leaves us in a good position to finish the players off before we get to Enzo Maresca, of course, with Christopher Nkunku. Of course, the decisive goal at the end and the celebration. On the one hand, I really liked it. On the other hand, I was like, it proved to me we're 4 league games into the season, we're already having squad issues because there's already big name players not happy about not playing enough. So where will this go? I have no idea. But does anybody at the club care? Probably also not. It's not like we care about the well-being of players. So maybe we just don't care if they're angry. Fair enough, I suppose. If it works out this way, I'm not going to complain about it too hard. But yeah, Nkunku came on very late. He had 5 passes today, completed all 5 of them. Had 1 dribble today, completed that dribble. Had 1 ground duel today, completed that, won that ground duel. Had 2 touches in the opposition box and scored. So, I mean, I guess as a sub, I guess you probably give him a 10. What more can you ask from a guy that comes on in the 79th minute than to score the winner? So I guess that's pretty good going. Obviously, because it's the start, he played very little. Don't take that rating maybe too seriously. But yeah, it's a real problem that we don't know what to do with him. We're kind of struggling to put him in one of the 10 roles because Palmer is guaranteed to play one of them. And if you play both of them together, the midfield is non-existent. But he's probably not good enough physically and in the air to be a striker all of the time. We don't want him on the wing, so I don't know what to do. But you also really want him in the team because he's by far the best finisher we have at the club. Because that finish even today, it's outrageous. The touch, the turn, the strength not to get pushed over by the centre-back as he tries to roll the centre-back to then finish it bottom corner. We don't have many players at the club that would have scored that goal. I genuinely think on the right foot, he's the only one. On the left foot, maybe Palmer. But I think on the right foot, he's probably the only one who I believe will score that goal the way he has.
Training Mudryk would definitely.
Training Mudryk would probably score from his own goal because he's the best shooting I've ever seen anybody have. So, but yeah, in the game, absolutely fantastic. Adash, I'll go to you first.
Felix would have dribbled past them and then tripped over himself. To be fair.
Or that. That also sounds like it. But yeah, what did you make of Nkunku? What did you make of the goal, man?
Yeah, I mean, I could wax lyrical about the goal for like 10 minutes. I mean, it was beautiful. I think, to be fair, watching the replay back, the defending was also a little bit shocking. It was like Disasi worthy defending, but still at the same time, I think the fact that he was able to like just that touch to get away from the 2 defenders at first, and then having the composure to kind of put it in the corner. Like from the first glance, that looked like so perfectly in the corner, the way he shot it. So yeah, just a beautiful goal under pressure, losing or drawing to Bournemouth in the 80th minute. So yeah, I mean, I would give him a 10-star happily, just for being able to save us and get that winning goal.
100%. What more can you even say? Bacham, I assume you agree. Obviously, wax those lyricals if you want to about the goal, about the move itself. What do you think about this issue with him that we're like unsure what position to put him in, but we also all know and think that we need him in the team because he is the best finisher?
I think it's a difficult one because I think the roles that we kind of designed for the idea that Maresca has kind of fits the players that we have as well. You know, the striker role is kind of molded to fit Jackson, and the 10 role is molded to fit Palmer. I just think with Nkunku, when he started, we've kind of shoehorned him into a system that doesn't necessarily play to his strengths, which in hindsight might be a mistake because he might be in a way he might be the best player we have because he's one of the oldest ones. He's one of the ones who's played for the longest amount of time professionally, at least. So I think we should at least try to find a role for him because we saw the quality at today.
I mean, obviously, I think you can try playing Palmer right wing, and then you can play Nkunku as the 10, but that means you don't play Madueke, who's also been in phenomenal form. So you
maybe even try him striker and get him closer to the goal, play a false 9 with the million attackers we have. I think there are a lot of possibilities. I think he does need to play because what he has like 3 starts and he scored 3 goals or something crazy like
Yeah.
that.
Well, 2 were penalties to be fair, but yeah.
2 were penalties, but I think as well this the goal he scored today is a carbon copy of the goal he scored at Anfield away last season. If you go and look
Yeah,
back at that,
very true.
the same dribble, the same finich. Uh,
Maybe the
you know,
Anthem one was
as
even
well,
better.
you know, being able to hold away Premier League defenders, very impressive. 3 of them as well. I can't really do anything other than agree to the fact, you know, when he is, because it's a difficult goal to score. He gets the ball there, is able to control it, dribble, finish, hold defenders off. Very impressive. So I think, to be honest, for winning at the Vitality away, a 10 is more than fair.
There you go. There you go. And we finish it off with a rating for, I put him here with Vega because easiest to put it on screen like that, with Enzo Maresca. I'll get mine out the way. I'll elaborate more after, and maybe even more as you guys put across your points. I'll give him a 5 out of 10 today. I was thinking of a 4 for a while already as we went through the stream. But at the same time, he brought Sancho on at halftime. Okay, the first 10 minutes of second half didn't really change much because we were still terrible. But then as soon as the second set of subs happened, mostly Fofana going to the right and Tosin coming on, plus then obviously Felix, I guess, even though we all kind of agreed that Felix didn't do that much. And then we were all critical of waiting so long with Nkunku coming on. But he brought him on and he scores the winner. So how critical can I be of how late you brought him on? So maybe he got that perfectly right. But I do still think that I think he should have, like, I know obviously a lot of midfielders missing. Will I say that Maresca could have had a veto against loaning Ugochukwu out? I think he probably could have done. So even though that obviously is unfair to include in today's match rating, I still think also Maresca, alongside the sport directors, is at fault for us being light in midfield. As soon as one of them is out, well, I know 2 of them with Lavia. So as soon as Lavia is back, this is no problem anymore. But for now, it is. And I think he didn't deal with the problem particularly well. I'm not sure if Cucurella playing as almost a left number 10 is the solution to the situation. I'm not sure if playing Disasi at right back. No, I'm not sure. I know for a fact that is not the situation. And if he does that ever again, he gets an automatic 0, whichever game that happens. Because that's my biggest criticism today. You started, I don't like that already, but fair enough. But 10, 15, 20 minutes, the latest into that game, that should have been changed around, and I cannot comprehend how it hasn't. How it took until the 61st minute to change that, I will never understand. So that side of it was poor. But because we were so limited in midfield, we were kind of struggling to much adapt the system and adapt and kind of change things in our system and how we were playing today. Because what changes could you have made other than going significantly more attacking? And the way we've been called in transitions in every game so far this season, I'm not sure if going significantly more attacking, say at halftime at 0-0, would have been the smart play. So I understand why he didn't do that, and that is a bit of a problem. But again, partly his fault that we are quite as light in midfield. But yeah, mostly the Disasi and not doing anything about it, I was very disappointed with. So even though we won, I will give him below an average rating. But I still think because his subs kind of made it work in the end, I will still give him a 5. Bacham, I'll go with you first. What do you think?
I'd probably give him slightly higher. I'd level out with the 6. I think his original game plan didn't really work. I think some of it was fair enough. You know, Neto, I think most of us would have probably started him. I think Disasi, we've already touched upon, didn't really make sense. I think the thing is, we were so critical last season of Poch taking so long to make changes, and I really like the fact that he does make changes before the 60th minute. I think Sancho coming on at halftime. You know, if we'd seen if we'd have predicted the play to get subbed at halftime, Neto probably wouldn't have been who we thought, and it still changed the game. I think still being able to, you know, at some point make the change to put Tosin in, turn it around in defense at least helped it. I think his the fact that he put Nkunku on as well, I think his changes were fair today. Let's call them that. And they didn't win us the game, or individual quality won us the game, but he had to put the players on. So I just give him, you know, a slightly higher. I think a 6 is fair. Not a good, you know, starting lineup, but he improved on it throughout the way.
He did. Fair enough. Give him that 6. Overall, that leaves us at a 5.5 for now. Adash, coming to you. Where would you side on Maresca? How would you kind of go through today's game and judge Maresca on that? And what rating would you give him?
Yeah, to be fair, I would say solely based on the decisions he made, I would go with a 4, but then in the end, the fact that his decisions worked and ended up winning us the game with the subs, I would bring it up to a 5, because I think playing Disasi was a huge mistake, and when you have so many other alternatives, I think you have to look down upon that, especially if the game ends up not going in our favor. If Nkunku doesn't end up scoring that goal, or if like any of the chances that Bournemouth had end up going in, we look back on a very different game where like those decisions cost us the game. And similarly, I think with Nkunku, should have been brought on much earlier. I mean, I personally would have brought him on instead of Felix. I think even like, for example, moving Palmer outright and then putting Nkunku in that right 10 area would have been a much more effective substitution. And I think, especially when we're searching for that goal, I think that's something that he should be putting more faith in our best players. And Nkunku absolutely is one of our best players. But I'll go for a 5 just because we won. And hopefully we were able to build off of this. I know the game right after international break is never our strong suit, so that's also kind of something that we take into account. I think Daily posted something saying like this was our first win after an international break since like December of 2022. So hey, fair enough. At least we won the game.
To be fair, let's deep that, right? How many international breaks is there since December 2022? No, November 2022. You said, okay, so that would be March 2024. Then all 3 in 2023 autumn. So that's 3 of them. Then the 2023 March one. So that's 5 international breaks. We haven't won the first game after. So not maybe as crazy as saying November 2022 sounds, it being 5 times, but still quite significant. That is true. And to be fair, most of our team that started today did play in the international break. That's what I found so odd, because Sancho wasn't, Nkunku wasn't. These guys could have started, but the manager chose not to. So, it could have had maybe fresher legs, whatever else. But hey, it is what it is. Overall, that leaves us at a 5.5. And I guess at the end of the day, as much as there was a lot of frustration from today's game, particularly in the first half and the first 10, 15, 20 minutes of the second half, we win. And I'd always we were much better against Palace before the international break, but we drew. So I certainly went to bed that night a lot unhappier than I do tonight because we won. So let's try to build momentum. Bournemouth away used to be a really bad ground for us, but then in the last few years, it actually became a really good ground for us, where we pretty much always win. So yeah, back and forth. Didn't you say earlier, Bertrand, that we played 0-0? I think we actually played 0-0 at home, but we won when we played away. We won quite comfortably, I'm pretty sure, actually.
No, that was the season before.
Did we win both games against them last year?
No, it was 0-0. The Sterling free kick where it hit like the bar and stuff.
The 3-1 was the season before. Okay. Yeah.
But final point, we need to send a congratulations as well to our favorite referee, Anthony Taylor, who's broken the record for the most yellow cards in a Premier League game, 16, if you count the one with the both managers as well. Very impressive. From 11 fouls or something like that. You tweeted something about
he managed to achieve that and still not send players off when they should have been sent off for extra yellow cards. So how can you come to 16 when Cook should have got a second yellow card? I think one other Bournemouth player should have got a second yellow card. Maybe Cucurella should have got a second yellow card if, like Bertram says, the first one is justified, because I still think that second one should have been one. So yeah, typical shit referee. The fact that we had 4 games in the league so far and he was our ref twice, I cannot believe that this keeps happening. And I just, honestly, I don't understand. We have sport directors who come up with 18-page documents as to why to sack Pochettino 10 months after those sport directors decided to hire Pochettino. So how about these sport directors, because it's now not transfer season anymore, build up a report, ideally 18 pages long, go to the PGMOL, and show them every single wrong decision that Anthony Taylor has made against us. Because this cannot continue. Thomas Tuchel said it. She should just not be refereeing our games anymore. Let's just stop the drama. Let's stop having to argue every time. Is he shit? Does he do it on purpose? This, that, whatever you want to use. Just don't let him ref our games anymore. There's multiple refs that, Liverpool, I forget his name. But there's one ref that since 2 seasons ago doesn't ref Liverpool games anymore. And maybe that's changed now that Klopp's gone again, but that they did that because Klopp was not why we need to do something. We're not the little victims here. We are billionaire Chelsea Football Club. Can we do something, please? be proactive, please. Don't just wait for PGMOL to do something. They will not. They will give him to us even more times. You need to do something. Go to court, do something, because this cannot continue ever. Like, and it's not even that every game he's so bad at disadvantages. We said that he could have sent off Kukureli. He easily could have done, and he didn't. But it's just how he loses control of every game. Like, we have 4. Like, how many of our players got booked today? Was it 8 or more? Even more than that. And half of them weren't even justified yellow cards. Like, Jackson got a yellow card for talking. He didn't talk very animatedly, just spoke. Cobble got a yellow card for a perfect tackle.
Sancho?
Maresca got a yellow.
To be fair, Sancho at least ran up and was like moaning a little bit, but yeah, probably that harsh as well. And like, what? Anyway, let me not get too hung up on it. Let me tell the.
Let's have a happy day.
Let's have a happy day.
We won. Let's not think about details.
You should just sacrifice a staff member, send them on the pitch, knock Taylor out cold, give the staff member a 10-year ban. Who cares? We pay him off. It's fine. And then maybe Taylor will be scared to ref us again. Like, let's do, every time we play him, just get someone to knock him out, and he won't want to do it anymore. Do you know what I mean? If PGMOL won't keep him away, maybe we'll just have to scare him or something. Because, my God. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, Chelsea won a game of football. It's a good weekend. Do you know what I mean? Thank you very, very much to both Adash and Bertram for joining me. Check out both of their Twitters down in the description below. You can see Adash's on screen. Ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't done so just yet, please subscribe and hit that like button. That would be massively appreciated. And yeah, to finish it out, thank you very much for watching. Up the Chelsea, upwards and onwards, and we will see you next time.